Hello everyone, and welcome to Lesson 20.1A. I've entitled this video, Landforms and Waterways of East Africa. This video is going to cover pages 610 to 613. Well, let's start with question 1 through 11. It says, label the following 11 countries in East Africa. Alright, let's do this in alphabetical order. Let's start with Burundi. That little tiny one right there, landlocked, Burundi. Then we have Djibouti, another very small country, but it's over here. Then we have Eritrea, along the coast here, Eritrea. Next up, we have Ethiopia. That's this country right here, Ethiopia. Then we have Kenya, just south of Ethiopia. Then we have another landlocked country, Rwanda, right there north of Burundi. We have Somalia on the coast. This whole thing here is Somalia. Then we have South Sudan, which is of course south of Sudan. And we have Tanzania. And we have Uganda. Those are the 11 countries that make up East Africa. Land and water features. The region of East Africa consists of 11 countries. Sudan and South Sudan dominate the northern part of the region. Eritrea, Djibouti, Somalia, and Ethiopia are located in the northeast. This area is called the Horn of Africa because it is a horn-shaped peninsula that juts out into the Arabian Sea. You can see that right there. 3 countries occupy the central and southern parts of the region: Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda. Finally, in the western sector lie the landlocked countries of Rwanda and Burundi. East Africa offers a rugged, beautiful landscape that has great variety. Question number 12. What and where is the Horn of Africa? Well, what is it? It's the area of the horn-shaped peninsula right here in Africa. And where is it? It's right here on the map. It's jutting into the Arabian Sea. Question 13. Rwanda and Burundi are landlocked countries. We have studied that word before. What does it mean? Landlocked means you don't have any access to a major waterway. So you can see here they don't have any access to the ocean or sea. They have land surrounding them, other countries. So that makes them landlocked. Landforms. The Great Rift Valley is the most unusual feature of East Africa's physical geography. Sometimes it is called the Great Rift System because it is not one single valley. Rather, it is a series of large valleys and depressions in Earth's surface. These are formed by long chains of geological faults. The Great Rift started forming about 20 million years ago when tectonic plates began to tear apart from one another. Africa was once connected to the Arabian Peninsula. But as the two rifted apart, or separated from one another, the land in between sank and was filled by the Red Sea. You can see the Red Sea right here. Eventually, all of East Africa will separate from the rest of Africa, and the Red Sea will fill the rift. Question number 14. What is the Great Rift Valley, or the Great Rift System? That is the series of large valleys and depressions that we have in Earth's surface, and you can see those right here forming the part that makes up East Africa. And it is a very unusual feature of East Africa's physical geography, as the textbook says. Question number 15. What caused the Great Rift to start forming about 20 million years ago, when the tectonic plates began to tear apart from one another? Those tectonic plates in the Earth. Question 16. What filled in the area that once connected Africa to the Arabian Peninsula? The Red Sea, pictured right here. Question number 17. What will eventually happen to all of East Africa because of the rift? Eventually, all of East Africa will separate from the rest of Africa, and then the Red Sea will fill in the gap. The Great Rift System's northern end is in Jordan in Southwest Asia. From Jordan, it stretches about 4,000 miles to its southern end in Mozambique in southeastern Africa. The rift has an average width of 30 miles to 40 miles. The rift system has an eastern and western branch in East Africa. The Eastern Rift Valley, the main branch, runs from Southwest Asia along the Jordan River Dead Sea, and Red Sea. It continues through the Danakil Plain in Ethiopia. It is one of the hottest and driest places on Earth, and earthquakes and volcanic activity occur here regularly. Long, deep cracks develop in Earth's surface as the tectonic plates rift apart. As the Eastern Rift Valley continues south from the Danakil Plain, the conditions are not as severe. It takes the form of deep valleys as it extends into Kenya and Tanzania and down to Mozambique. The shorter Western Rift Valley stretches from Lake Malawi in the south through Uganda in the north through a series of valleys. A chain of deep lakes that includes Lake Tanganyika, Lake Edward, and Lake Albert marks the Western Rift's northern path. Question number 18. What two things occur along the branches of the Great Rift Valley? You have earthquakes and volcanic activity. Along the branches of the Great Rift Valley, much volcanic and seismic activity occurred. The largest volcanoes are located on the Eastern Rift. These include Mount Kenya and Kilimanjaro. Kilimanjaro is on the border between Kenya and Tanzania. With a summit of 19,341 feet, Kilimanjaro is the tallest mountain in Africa. Its summit is covered with snow, and you can see that on the picture to the right, year-round, even though the mountain is near the equator. Sudan is home to vast plains and plateaus. The northern part of the country is desert, covered in sand or gravel. Somalia lies in the eastern part of the region along the Indian Ocean. And now we can answer question 19. What is the tallest mountain in Africa? It is Mount Kilimanjaro. Somalia is also an extremely dry area. The country is made up largely of savanna and semi-desert. To the north of Somalia lies the small country of Djibouti. Located on the coast between the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, Djibouti displays a high diverse landscape. It has rugged mountains and desert plains. South of Sudan, at the western edge of Uganda, the Ruwenzori Mountains divide that country from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. These peaks are sometimes called the Mountains of the Moon. Mountains give way to hills in small, landlocked Rwanda. It is known as the, quote, land of 1,000 hills for its beautiful landscape. Question number 20. What are the Mountains of the Moon? Well, those are the nicknames given to the peaks of the Ruwenzori Mountains that divide the Democratic Republic of the Congo from Uganda. Bodies of water. The longest river in the world is the Nile, and we've studied that in a previous chapter. The Nile Basin includes parts of many countries in the East African region, as you can see on the map. Tanzania, Burundi, Rwanda, Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia, South Sudan, and the Sudan. Beginning in the 1800s, European explorers made numerous expeditions in attempts to find the source of the Nile River. The Great River was discovered to have two sets of headwaters. One of them, the Blue Nile, rises in the northern highlands of Ethiopia. The other source, the White Nile, begins in Lake Victoria and runs through Lake Albert. The White Nile then passes through the swampy wetlands of central South Sudan, a huge area called the Sud. And now we can answer a couple of questions. 21. What is the longest river in the world called? It is the Nile River. Question number 22. What does the term headwaters mean, or how is it defined? As you can see in the bottom left there, headwaters are the source of a river, the sets of streams that feed into the river's beginning. Question 23. What are the two headwaters of the Nile River? The two headwaters of the Nile River is the Blue Nile and the White Nile. Question number 24. What is the Sud and where is the Sud located? The Sud is a huge swampy area of wetlands in central South Sudan. And you can see that pictured right here. In northern Sudan, the Blue Nile and the White Nile meet at the city of Khartoum. The Great River then runs northward through Egypt and empties into the Mediterranean Sea, and we've learned that in previous lessons. Other than the Nile, East Africa has few important rivers. This is due to the intermittent rainfall and the high temperatures in many areas of the region. Question number 25. What important city is located where the Blue Nile and the White Nile meet? That is the city of Khartoum. And you can see that pictured right here on the map. In the late 1970s, the swampy Sud was the focus of a huge construction project called the Jonglei Canal. This channel was designed to avoid the Sud. The goal was to allow the headstreams of the White Nile to flow more freely. Instead of the water spreading across the Sud and slowly moving through it, the canal would allow more water to flow downstream and reach Sudan and Egypt. That would support more agriculture and better city services in those countries. But it would also damage the wetland environment of the Sud. Fisheries could collapse and go extinct. Construction was suspended in 1983. The project could not continue because civil war in Sudan made it too dangerous. And you can see the construction of it in the bottom right there. And you can see the proposal in the picture of the map in the top. Question 26. What was the goal of the Jonglei Canal? The goal was to avoid the Sud, and it was to allow the headstreams of the White Nile to flow more freely, which would help out by allowing more water to flow downstream and reach Sudan and Egypt. Question 27. What negative impact would the Jonglei Canal have in the area? One of the negatives, though, is it would damage the wetland environment of the Sud, and it would probably make the fisheries collapse and then probably go extinct. Question... Oh, I think we're ready to move on. Let's hold on to the next question until we do the next slide. Many of the lakes in East Africa are located near the Great Rift Valley. The largest lake on the continent of Africa is Lake Victoria, and you can see that pictured in the bottom left. It's also pictured in the top right. This lake lies between the western and the eastern branches of the Great Rift. The lake stretches into 3 countries, Uganda and Kenya in the north, and Tanzania in the south. With an area of 26,828 square miles, Lake Victoria is the second largest freshwater lake in the world after our very own Lake Superior in the United States. I almost said Victoria. For such a large body of water, Lake Victoria is relatively shallow. Its greatest known depth is about 270 feet. The lake is home to more than 200 species of fish. Of these, tilapia, pictured bottom right, has the most economic value. My mom likes tilapia. Question number 28. What is the largest lake on the continent of Africa? It is Lake Victoria. Question 29. What are the 2 largest freshwater lakes in the world? America's own Lake Superior and Africa's Lake Victoria. Question 30. What fish has the most economic value for Lake Victoria? Tilapia, pictured in the bottom right corner. And question 31. What is the world's largest freshwater lake? And it is the second deepest freshwater lake. Well, in order to get that question, we're going to have to go to the next slide. Another important lake in the region is Lake Tanganyika. This long, narrow body of water is located south of Lake Victoria, between Tanzania and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And you can see that pictured here in the map, and it's also pictured here. The lake is only 10 to 45 miles wide, but very long. Measuring 410 miles north to south, it is the world's longest freshwater lake. With a maximum depth of 4,710 feet, it is also the second deepest. Only Lake Baikal in Russia is deeper than Lake Tanganyika. And now we can answer question 31. What is the world's largest freshwater lake and the second deepest freshwater lake? It is Lake Tanganyika. Farther south is Lake Malawi. It is the 3rd largest lake in the East African Rift Valley. The lake lies mainly in Malawi and forms part of that country's border with Tanzania and Mozambique. And you can see that pictured on the map here, and the blue waters pictured here. Well, thank you so much for watching. Before we go, I've got to have something for you. Why did the boat dock leave the busy lake? The answer: too much peer pressure. Oh, wow. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.